Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are here in the United States. My name is Precious Joy, and I am the founder of PurityIsPrecious.com. PurityIsPrecious.com is a website that I created that is to establish purity from the inside out while also maintaining a level of standard before God. It's about developing healing for the soul and actually bringing yourself to full awareness of who you are and what you were called to be and what you were called to do here on the earth. So if you're wondering why I'm here before you today, I'm here before you today because of the last writing that I did was called When God Interviews You. It actually had big hits on the website. I got so many Facebook inboxes, so many messages sent on the website to me, and so a lot of people was really moved and touched by that blog. And so I'm so excited about it. It was actually a blog that was written because it was something that was so dear to me and so close to my heart, and it was something that I never knew actually was in the surface of the core of my being until God actually wanted to unravel that and put his finger on it and bring it to the forefront. So I just want to take you all through the process of it and how we got to that place. So I was at home one day, I was just in my room, I was actually getting ready for work, to go to work or whatever, and God starts to talk to me. And I'm a person where I can hear God any time of the day. It doesn't matter. He'll put these little things in my mind or whatever, and I would respond back to him. So yes, I'm a person that will talk out loud to myself from time to time, but that's usually me responding to something that God is asking me or some type of question that God has actually proposed to me. And so on this particular day, I heard God say to me, "So Precious, why won't you date a dark-skinned man? Or why won't you court? Or why do you always say that you would never marry a dark-skinned man?" And so when he said that to me, I said, "Well, God, because my kids got to be gorgeous. There is no room for error. They have to be pretty. They got to have that good hair. I prefer for me to blend properly or whatever. There's nothing a dark-skinned man can do for me. There's nothing that I want from them or whatnot." And I just think couples that are like, one that's light-skinned and the other one that's dark-skinned are actually very nice-looking couples. And it brings like a certain level of balance, but mostly because my kids, God, I just got to have them pretty kids. I can't have nothing that's not cute, basically. And so as crazy as that may sound, that was like my thought patterns. That's how I actually felt. And I see couples all the time where both of them are, of darker complexions that have kids, and their kids are absolutely cute and, gorgeous kids. I'm not saying that every kid that I saw was ugly or whatever it was, but for me, I just didn't feel like I can produce those type of results when it comes down to me having kids with a dark-skinned man. And so when I said that, and when I was talking to God about it, all of a sudden, I felt like this instant reaction to my emotions. And so my emotions started to, get all over the place. And so I knew that at that particular moment, God had just revealed to me that there was a deeper wound than what meets the surface. And so all of a sudden, all these tears started to roll down my face, and I'm starting to cry. And I'm like, you know what? What is this from? Why am I crying? Why is these tears flying down my face and things of that nature? And so I'm steady trying to catch them and trying to drown them up, because here I am. I need to get ready to leave for work within the next 10, 15 minutes. I just had a clean beat, like I just smoked my face for work. And so I'm like, God, there is no room for this mess. I don't have time to, put this makeup back on, and I don't want to go to work with dry spots on my face, because that's where the tears don't roll down. So I'm trying to catch it. I'm trying to stop them. And I could not stop those tears for no reason, for nothing at all. And so I was like, oh my God, this is something serious. And I finally said, okay, God, okay, I see this. And I know that you're here to heal it, that you're here to deliver it. I said, but God, honestly, at this moment, I don't have the time. I said, I see it. I promise you, when I get the time, I'm going to let you heal it, and I'm going to let you deal with it. I said, but I need to leave this house in the next 10 minutes, less than that actually, because I have to go to work. And so once I said that, I was able to finally pull myself together. I was able to finally, the pain from the wound started to mellow out, because it was so deep. That thing instantly, from my heart all the way up to my head, caused a headache. My voice sort of kind of changed, because that thing was almost like it had came to literally strangle me. And so I knew that this was something that could not stay because it had to be dealt with. Otherwise, it can probably cause my future or even my purpose with who God originally created for me to be with to actually be sabotaged. And so I went to work, came back home, and one of the things that I always try to do is whenever, depending upon how my day goes, I always try to end my day with God, or I try to start my morning off with Him. And so when I came back home, because I had knew the encounter that I had before I had even left to go to work, I decided to just come home and actually go right into the room, into my bedroom, and to sit down and put on some instrumental music and to allow God to actually deal with that wound. And so one of the things that I want you to take note on what I did not wait until God brought that back to my attention on what He had started early in that morning or early in that day before I left to go to work. I actually brought it back to His attention. And I came and I sat down and I got quiet and I said, okay, God, you showed me this before I left to go to work today. You brought this to my attention. And here I am. I'm ready for you to heal it. I'm ready for you to deliver me of it. And I'm ready for you to bring me to a place of restoration. I see it. I acknowledge it. I acknowledge that the wounds and that the hurts is there. And I give it to you, God. I completely surrender it to you. So once I did that, I opened up the door for Him to actually come in and to begin the healing process. But however, the healing process had to begin with me actually treading and going back to the place where those wounds actually started. And so I knew for a fact that I had no idea where God was going to take me, but I knew that I was open. My heart was open. My mind was open. I was unafraid to actually visit the place of where the hurts and the wounds had established. And so anytime when you're going to go through any kind of healing process, one of the very first things God is going to do is going to take you to the place where you have to be unafraid to visit the very environments that it happened. And so because I had, settled within myself that this was going to happen, that I was going to have to go through this deliverance process, I came to a place where I was like, I can't do nothing with it. This thing is too painful, because I felt the pain earlier in that day. And I allowed God to actually develop, the resolve that I needed to be able to move forward. And so God, without hesitation, once I welcomed Him in and I got quiet, He brought me to a place where I was in, where I remember I didn't start school in the 7th grade, but I came up out of, I was homeschooled for a few years. And when I came back into school, God took me back to the 7th grade. And so when I was in the 7th grade, there was times where I was always ridiculed for how I looked. I was always talked about. Things was always said to me that was out of context or just out of nature or whatever. And when you come back to school, you just happy to be back in school around other kids, around other peers and things of that nature, especially after you've been homeschooled for 3 years. And I was one of those that was homeschooled for 3 years. I think I came out of school in the 4th grade, and I was, I'm gonna say it, I was expelled. But because I was expelled out of school in the 4th grade, my mom homeschooled me for 3 years so I could return back to school around the 7th grade. And so when I came back into school, it was like a totally new environment. I was still trying to figure out some things or whatever. Kids talk about each other. I was used to that when I was in school, when I was in the 4th grade. But now all of a sudden, it's like it is a whole new environment, a whole new breed. And I'm trying to adjust and adapt to this whole new type of culture that I'm now being placed back into. Now, even treading back, the schools that I was in when I was in 4th grade all my life was a Christian school. But now when I come back to school for the 7th grade and all the way through high school, I now enter a public school. And so talk about the differences there or whatnot, where, there are more boundaries, there are more rules and restrictions in Christian schools, but then once you come to public schools, it's a totally different ball game. I'm just trying to give you a little bit more of a backdrop as to how, this whole thing started. And so here I am, I'm back up in 7th grade, and it was like clockwork, like nothing like I ever experienced before. Every single day, I was told that I was ugly. Every single day, I was told I was referenced to some type of creature. I can remember being called Freddy Cougar. I could remember being called a gremlin. I could remember being called a disease. It was so much stuff that was constantly being said, that was constantly being thrown at me. And I was one of those. I was always pretty much a strong girl. I said my little smart comments back. I said what I wanted to say back to them and stuff like that. But when you're hearing this thing every single day, just like anyone, you pretty much would get tired of fighting. You would get tired of trying to defend yourself. So you just basically internalize everything and you think, well, dang, if everyone is saying this, it must be true. And so unconsciously, I had these wounds, and these wounds started to come in that I did not know had the amount of authority that it did at the time. And so I would not open up myself. I began to guard myself. I began to protect myself. I began to establish this facial expression where it said, don't you dare try me or whatnot. And that was because I felt like that if I didn't have a mean face, if I didn't have a face where that said that this ain't what you want, then people would really try to legitimately run over me. And I knew that that was something that I was not going to allow. I knew that that was something that I was not going to, have in my life. But yet at the same time, I got so tired of always defending myself to the fact that I literally got upset with God that he created me this way. And so I would hear myself saying certain statements like, well, at the end of the day, God did this, so it ain't nothing that I can do or whatever. And Holy Spirit just brought back another memory. People would say to me, even classmates would say to me things like, God don't like ugly. Can you imagine that? And so when those things were being said, I remember just like looking at them like, excuse you, you know what I mean? But I kept holding it in. I wouldn't talk about it. And I kept bringing myself to a place where it was like, this is who I am. This is my fate. I can't change it or whatnot. And so I just kept moving forward. But I failed to realize that I was never moving forward. I failed to realize that deep down inside, I kept making up these decisions in my mind where I made up my mindset that it had to be a light-skinned man. Getting emotional. Okay. Okay. We're going to show the vulnerability because this is something that I never did. That was the part of me that I never shared with people. Okay. That was the part of me that I never shared with people. That was the thing about me. I never would allow myself to cry about certain things. I never would allow myself to feel it. And so that's how I kept going with life. I would not feel like the wounds and like the emotions of certain things. And so I remember when I was like, just being in school, how I just always just constantly, I would say my smart things back to the kids, or at the same time, I would always just, just think, I had that thing to me where it was like, God did this. God did this. God had more fun creating others. That's how I actually looked at girls that were more prettier or girls that were, beautiful to guys or whatnot. I used to look at them and I would say, well, Dad, God really had fun creating her, or creating this person, or creating that person. And so I just felt like he never took the time with me to create me in perfection. And so when God brought this up to me, and as you can see, there is still more healing that's coming. But the good thing is that I'm open to allow you all to see it. But moving forward or whatnot, that was such a strong thing to me, to the fact that I did not want for my children to have to walk through what I walked through. And so to prevent that, I personally felt like they had to be created by a light-skinned man so that I would not have to worry about them experiencing the type of hurt or disappointment that I had to go through. So, and in my mindset at that time, you know, when I was even, I've always thought mentally, whether or not I spoke it out loud or not, but I always thought mentally that I wanted my kids to have my husband's side of the family as far as their hair is concerned. I wanted my kids to have his complexion. I wanted my kids to have hopefully his skin, because I was hoping that he had like even toned, flawless skin. The only thing that I wanted my daughters to have was my body. That was it. Because I always knew that I had a nice shape. I always had a nice figure. That was the only thing that I wanted them to have from me. But as far as the whole makeup and the whole just their looks and their whereabouts, for me, I didn't want them to take any of that from me. And so that was what God had came to show me a couple of weeks ago. That was the main thing that he had came to actually bring to the forefront of me. He wanted me to see that that was a huge part of my life that was actually hindering me. That was something in my life that was actually going to possibly sabotage me from even meeting a mate, because maybe the mate is of a darker complexion. But the problem is that I would disregard certain men, and that did happen. There were guys that showed interest in me, or that seemed like they wanted to get to know me a little bit better. But for me, because his complexion didn't measure up to what my mindset and what my mind frame showed that I needed to be with to produce pretty kids, discarded them. I ended relationships that could have actually had potential to go places, because they did not look like how I wanted them to look. Going back to the healing process, when God brings something up to the forefront of you, the most of the times he wants for you to actually see what it is that lies on the inside of you. And so that was exactly why God had presented that question to me. Precious, why won't you marry a dark-skinned man? And I failed to realize, I failed to see, I failed to understand that even though I knew why I wouldn't marry a dark-skinned man at that time, it was mostly because internally he wanted for me to hear on the outside of me what was on the inside of me. And so that was exactly why when he proposed the question to me, I started to verbally speak out loud to myself. And I said, oh God, the reason why I won't marry a dark-skinned man is because. And so because I did that, and because I verbalized that, I actually heard on the outside what was happening on the inside of me that I had suppressed for so many years. And that brought me to the place of actually being open for healing, and being open for deliverance, and being open for God to restore that part of me. And so here we are. Like I said, I'm still clearly going through the healing process. I'm still clearly going through the restoration of it. But at the same time, I'm seeing the progress of where I was a few weeks ago versus where I was today. And the precious years ago would never have even let the tears that just roll down her face before people. Because I looked at that as me being weak. I looked at that as if me showing that that the people that did actually hurt me through the words that they said, as if they actually won. Where in actuality, they didn't win anything, because here I am today. I'm doing videos. I'm beautiful, and I see that. I'm in a place where God can bring me to a place of healing. I'm in a place where God can bring me to a place of wholeness. I'm just in a well-rounded, better place. And so I recognize that I'm in a place where God is now able to use my story. He's able to use my hurt. He's able to use my wounds to help bring healing and restoration to others. And so, as I stated, for the healing process, I don't care how tough it may be. I don't care how hurtful it may be. You're going to have to look fear directly in the face and become unafraid. Because you're going to have to be unafraid to go back to that place, back into those environments, internally, not necessarily saying physically. You don't necessarily have to go to an environment physically, but you do have to go to an environment internally to be able to confront and deal and address with what happened to you that actually set you on a path to where things went downhill. You're going to have to be okay with going to a place inside and being vulnerable enough so that when others see it, you really don't care, because you're mostly concerned about your healing. You're concerned about what you're called to do. You're concerned about your purpose. And so you're going to have to be okay with actually bringing yourself to a place mentally, emotionally, and physically, so that God can actually bring you to a place of wholeness so that he can use you to restore others. You're going to have to forgive. Forgiveness is one of the biggest things that I struggle with over the years, because I felt like once you crossed me or once you did something to me, I was done with you. I had a strong thing of unforgiveness where I will hold on to it, because I felt like if I forgave you, then you won. And that was one of the things that I struggled with. I refused to be a loser. I refused to back down. I refused to feel like I was less than, or that you would make me feel like I was less than, when in actuality, no one was making me with anything. No one was making me feel any kind of way but me. And let me even bounce back just a little bit. I'm going to divert back. Even though every single day when I was in school, I was being told that I was ugly and that, all these horrendous things was being said to me. The problem was that I believed it. The problem was that I internalized it. And because I internalized it, that was what I projected out to others. And that was what came off of me to others or whatnot. And so they were only picking up what I was putting out to them. They was only picking up the type of my self-esteem as. Now, if you see me now today, like just any day, every day, or whatever, I'm at church or where I'm hanging out with friends or whatnot, I am dressed. My wardrobe has to be right. I try to make sure that my makeup is right. I try to keep my hair done, different things of that nature. I'm always real cautious about what I'm wearing, how I'm presenting myself on the outside. But when I was in school back then, because I believed that I was ugly, because I believed that I wasn't pretty, because I believed that God didn't take his time when he created me, that was one of the main things that I projected. So that means that I didn't put effort into my looks. I didn't put effort into what I wore. I didn't put effort into how I did my hair. I didn't put effort into how I made myself look when other girls at school did. But because I believed that I was ugly, because I believed that I was not pretty, because I believed that I was less than, and because I believed that the lies of what was always told to me, I believed the lie of the enemy, I did not take time with grooming myself, with grooming my appearance. So I think when I was in school, I wore the same sweater or the same jacket every day, because I just wanted, and that covered up my outfits a lot of times, or whatever it was I was wearing or whatever. I just wore the same jacket because I didn't care. I didn't want, the attention on me or whatnot. And I think I probably felt like that if I did wear a certain outfit that was cute, and I think I did do that or whatever. And when I would be really nice, dressed nice or whatever, someone would always say, "You still ugly." So it was like, for me, it was a lose-lose. I felt like there was no win in that situation. And so because that was, I believe, what people were saying to me, I projected that on the outside of me. So that came out in my demeanor to people, that came out in my attitude to people, that came out in how I interacted with people, that came out, but that came out because that was me trying to protect myself as well, and trying to feel like I'm not moved by what people say, or I'm not moved by what people think about me, when in actuality I was. And so, that was just like something that was huge for me or whatnot. But I'm so grateful that God has brought me to a place where he, where he wanted to show me this. And I believe that God wanted to show me this because one of the things about me, every single day, it never fails. Every single day, I always have this statement that I say to God. And I say to God, I ask that whatever it is that's in my life that has the potential to sabotage my future, to sabotage my purpose, or to sabotage whatever it is that you call for me to do on this earth, I ask God that you will put your finger on it and manifest it, bring it to the forefront so that it can be healed, delivered, and restored. So because I say this thing to God every single day, I believe that this was one of those situations. where God wanted to bring it up to the forefront so that it can be healed, delivered, and restored, so that whenever God decides to say, tell me to do something, I won't be so concerned about how I look before people. If God tell me to do something, or points out a certain guy to me, or a certain guy decides to want to approach me, I won't feel like, no, you dark skinned. I won't feel that way. And already I don't feel that way. I personally think that there are so many different things that God is interviewing many people about, but I believe that a lot of us have not really tapped into the space of where we are truthfully honest with ourselves about some things. And so because we haven't tapped into that space, God has to bring it up to you again at a later date, and again at a later date, because I'm quite sure that this situation with me not wanting to marry a dark-skinned man, or having like my whole perspective shifted towards, him having to look a certain way, I'm quite positive that this was something that God wanted to deal with maybe years ago, but I wasn't in a space where I was open to even hear it. And even when people would even try to talk to me about it, it was like that mess went in one ear and out the other. So when God starts to interview us, a lot of times he interviews us so that we can hear what's on the inside of us. It's not that he want to hear it. He knows what's there. He wants to hear what he wants you to hear, what's on the inside of you. The quicker that you can understand that, the quicker that you can grasp hold of that, the quicker that you can actually bring yourself to a place where you're truthful with yourself and you're okay, no matter how hard it hurts, no matter how much time it may take to deal with it, to confront it, and even to address it, the quicker you will be able to be healed of it, and that you will be able to walk into your purpose and be manifested into the greatness that God has called you to be manifested into. So when God decides to interview you for something, when God starts to talk to you about something, I encourage you to actually don't just answer the questions at a surface level, but actually answer the questions full out, because you're going to hear yourself say something that's going to sound off, but don't try to make it sound right, because I think that that's what we do a lot of times too. A lot of us know when our perspective is off about something, but we try to make it right because we want it to fit our comfort zone. We want it to fit our security blanket. We want it to fit the space that we are in currently. And if you're going to grow, if you're going to mature, if you're going to develop, and if you're going to pass these tests so that God can advance you to the next level, so that God can take you to the next place, so that God can use you to help restore, build, and develop others, you're going to have to pass the test and answer questions that he is bringing and proposing to you full out, and in a place where you recognize that you have nothing left to lose. And that's the place that I have finally reached in my life. I feel like I ain't got nothing left to lose. I don't care what people think about me, about things that I'm doing, because I'm more concerned about pleasing God in this season. I'm more concerned about pleasing God in my life. I'm more concerned about getting to the place that God wants me to be at. I encourage you all, if you have had multiple questions, if you hear God speaking to you, if you know that God is trying to bring you to a place and trying to show you some things about yourself, don't shun away from it. Don't draw back from it. Don't be fearful. Don't feel like, you can't do it, or that you're not good enough, or that you're not worthy enough, or that it's too hurtful for you to go back there. I encourage you to do it. It is so rewarding on the other side. It's so rewarding. It's such a place where you find yourself walking into the fullness of God. And so I believe I've given you the tips of, even, when you want to get healed from something, you have to be okay. You bring it back to God's attention. If you don't have time to let him heal you of it right then and there, you acknowledge that there is a wound. You have to acknowledge that there is a wound. You have to be unafraid to go back to that space, back to that environment, back to that place of hurt, back to that place of devastation. And you have to forgive. You got to forgive others. You got to forgive that environment. You got to forgive that situation. And you got to forgive yourself. That's the biggest thing. Forgive yourself. So that's all I have today. Thank you so much for tuning in. You can follow me on purityisprecious.com. That's the website, of course. You can follow me at Purity is Precious for Instagram. And then you can also like the Facebook page, Purity is Precious.